Yo, what's up, everybody? We're back. We're on episode 12 now. Hope everybody's enjoying the new format, the way we're doing things. I've been having a good time. And it's the afternoon on a Friday. I mean, on a Thursday, the day
Thursday.
before the launch. We just had the Xbox thing just happened. The Xbox podcast. That was a podcast, right?
No. It was like a showcase. It was
It was
called
like a
the
showcase. Okay.
Xbox Business Showcase.
Xbox Business Showcase happened, so we're definitely going to be going through that. We're going to talk a little bit about the Apple little VR thing, because I think that's really interesting, and the usual run of show. As always, you're here with myself, Brian, and my main man, Freddie. And if you guys like what you're hearing, make sure you hitting the stars, commenting, and liking, and subscribing. Just all the things if you want to keep up with us, so you know when there is something new. Freddie?
Steps up.
What's up? So we're going to roll our intro and then we will get this party started. Okay. Well, I'm going to just get this going right out the gates, and I hope you're ready for this. Freddie called me right before this. He was telling me about the Xbox thing. I'll give the quick breakdown. We talked about it last week. Everybody was concerned about this Xbox update that was coming. Starfield, all these games were going to become multi-plat. Xbox was giving away their third parties. Xbox is dead. Xbox sucks. Freddie, what happened?
Oh, I mean, it was kind of you guys are all idiots. So let's just start off before the Xbox. Let's just talk about what Sony did, right? Sony had kind of like their chairman come out and did an interview about their gaming industry and then the success of the game that we were playing recently, Helldivers, right? The multi-plat gaming as a service game, doing very well. I'm not sure. I think they're at 200,000+.
They are. They hit 200,000.
And they said something really interesting, which was in the past, Sony made games to sell hardware. And so that is no longer the case. They hit a plateau. And so now they're trying to find ways to increase their margins, which makes sense, right? They also said something notable: no first party games for 14 months, which is
right.
Interesting.
Well, yeah, no games from their studios. So you have Rise of Ronin, and there's some other things coming out, but like Naughty Dog,
first party. Those are first party.
All your like your Insomniacs and all of that, which I was not surprised by, because two of those studios are making brand new IPs supposedly involved in space. The only thing that is surprising about it is that Ghost of Tsushima 2 isn't coming out before then. That felt like an easy grab before the next 14 months, but
well, there's a couple remakes that are in works. But here's the thing that I really appreciate about Sony is they timed it perfectly. They already sold 50+ million consoles, right? So in the first launch, they had all the first party titles that sold the console, where Xbox for the first year didn't have anything, and then they're doing the reverse, right? Now they have games, but nobody wants to buy the console. So, anyways, that being said, Xbox, there's a big Xbox freak out, and people were like, the world is ending. Xbox came out and they said that they started off with the exclusivity, right? So they said 4 games officially, and secretively they didn't mention the games, right?
Right.
But they
didn't say what they were.
Keywords, right? 2 of them were live service games, and 2 of them are small titles. So from my intuition, and I am a brilliant man, the 2 games, my assumptions. So smart.
I mean, the live service thing's pretty easy.
Yeah,
right?
So it's going to be
obviously Sea of Thieves. Yeah.
And then the other one, I'm the only one that makes sense that is not a franchise seller, right? You're not doing Halo or whatever, is going to be Grounded, right? Yeah. That's the other live service game. Both of those games are well received, have hit their mark with Xbox, and I think it opens up it really feels like the same vein as Fortnite, right?
Oh yeah,
Fortnite is
yeah.
a title that can go cross platform, and then they
And
also said
it's good timing too, for especially Sea of Thieves, because Skull and Bones just released recently, or excuse me, it's in early access. It actually comes out tomorrow. Um, Seems like people are kind of all over the place on it, but the funniest thing I keep reading is people are like, all this game makes me want to do is go play Sea of Thieves.
well, and the interesting thing is the Sony thing might be an actual blessing, because think about if Sea of Thieves was on PlayStation, it would sell like an insane. It would be insane. I think
Well,
it
yeah,
would
I
sell
mean, in
really
terms
well.
of a live service pirate game, I mean, it's still the
It's
only one that it's kind of like
does it
fully well
well.
rounded. Skull and Bones is
Yeah,
more of like a World of Tanks situation, but it's World of
yeah,
Ships, because you
yeah.
never leave the ship really, So
Well, and then they also get all the expansions. I just think it's a
right,
smart
right.
move. And then so the other two games, they said smaller games, which obviously we already talked about.
Hi-Fi
I
Rush,
think
yeah.
Hi-Fi Rush for sure goes to Nintendo. And the other game is called Pediment, Pendant.
Oh,
It's a
Pentiment. I know which one you're
Pentiment.
talking about now.
Yes,
Yes.
Pentiment. That game obviously came out, and not a ton of fanfare, but let's just make a couple bucks off of it. And those are the only four games. They said that this is basically on a trial basis to see how well they do, and if it does well, they might, do some other games. But I very much doubt there'll be like the high level exclusives like
Yeah.
Gears of War, Halo, blah blah blah.
Okay. So you
So
think people are stupid?
I do think people most.
All right,
I mean,
I'm coming
I've
in hot
generally
now.
said that.
We've let Freddie talk. I'm gonna have something. I've got the video up here. I'm gonna switch it now. First to Jeff Keighley on Twitter. He said, after watching the Xbox business update, how do you feel about Xbox's strategy moving forward? And it is across the board. We currently sit at 8,414 votes, and I think it's been under an hour. It's been 1 hour. And progressive and smart, there's 20% people said that. 27% said logical, it could be good. 30% are saying it's too early to say, and 21%, or excuse me, 20.8 say I am disappointed.
Well, I mean, they don't even know what title. I mean, like again, unless I think it's so the entire thing was basically saying this is going to help Xbox as a brand be healthy for the next 20 years. Like that's and the other thing, they kept saying this over and over, which makes sense. They are the number one publisher on PlayStation. They are the number one publisher on Nintendo. When it comes to games that are in their ecosystem.
Yeah.
And the other side of it too is all these games, guess where they're free? With a subscription.
Yeah. Yeah, but
free.
Now I'm gonna hit you with even more. Freddie's gonna be like back against the wall defending Xbox for the next like 15 minutes. Paul Tassi, I still like Paul Tassi regardless of how much I attack the man because of Suicide Squad. He's still one of my favorite writers out there. He seems to be usually pretty level-headed. He hit Twitter up, and he is first responding to this, which is a tweet from Tom Warren, where he says Xbox chief Phil Spencer doesn't rule out Starfield and Indiana Jones coming to PlayStation 5, and he is putting up a quote where it says, "You mentioned that Starfield and Indiana Jones aren't a part of the 4 despite rumors, but will those ever come to PlayStation 5? Can you rule that out?" And Phil Spencer says, "I don't think we should as an industry ever rule out a game going to any other platform. We're focused on these 4 games and learning from the experience, but I don't want to create a false expectation on those other platforms that this is somehow the first 4 to get over the dam, and then the dam's going to open and everything else is coming. That's not the plan today. I also don't want to mislead customers on those other platforms. We're launching these 4 games and we're excited about it." Paul Tassi, in response to this, has said, "These specific games are no big deal." And he's referring to the 4 because I think everybody knows they're the 4 me and you just talked about. I mean, it seems, like it'd be surprising if it wasn't. But it represents a larger change and a lot of uncertainty for players going forward. It's the case-by-case basis thing without saying it. This was the worst presentation of this concept I could have imagined, not even naming the first 4.
That is an idiotic take. Good Lord, Paul. That is the dumbest thing I've ever heard you say. So the Xbox from the get-go, from the jump was like everything is case by case. They are clearly with the acquisition of Activision Blizzard, clearly the biggest publisher on the planet at this point, right? I mean,
Well, yeah. So
and so
a part of me does think like you can't not say that. Like I'm sure there's a section somewhere that they got Activision and Blizzard by saying,
of
look,
course,
we're
yeah.
open, because you can't monopolize the industry and then make everything exclusive, right? I mean,
They're not stupid. The language is very precise. Case by case means he leaves the door open. And that way, if they have other acquisitions down the line, they can't go back and you said, well, all these games are exclusive. Look, no. Right. And look at these tiny titles that I just put on PlayStation and Xbox. It's all good faith stuff, but also it's financially, it's a smart move. Like there's nothing in that says, first off, we talked about this. Live service across platforms is the only way you monetize it without killing your audience, right?
Right.
If you kill, I mean, if Helldivers, it plateaus and then they start, charging you.
Helldivers is a great example, right? Because if it was only PlayStation, then it's 100,000 players. But it's 50-50 PlayStation PC, so it's 200,000 on PlayStation and 200,000 on PC, so it's 400,000 people, right? I mean, you doubled your sales by simply releasing this game on PC.
Yeah, I just don't think it's. First off, that presentation was perfect. I think they had the 3 people on there. They said some really good stuff. They said some very clear and precise things, and they said some things in
which we'll get there. We'll get there. I want to disagree with you, but a part of me just can't, because I do think business-wise, like Xbox is primed to be in a good spot, and on paper it makes a lot of sense. But another interesting tidbit from Mr. Paul Tassi. He sent a tweet from Charlie Intel. I do not know who this is, but
he's the kind of an insider for Call of Duty.
Great. He said what you said, because it clearly was in the update, but Xbox Game Pass now has 34 million subscribers. Paul essentially said, well, wait, the 34 million Game Pass subs included in the Xbox Live Gold people they converted to Game Pass Core, then that is ... very little growth. And it's basically referring to the fact that the last time Microsoft had shared the numbers was in January of 2022, when it actually had 25 million. And that was before they converted people. So essentially through the conversion and into 2024, they only gained 10 million subscribers. And that's kind of where I agree with you. It is a good business decision, but it is crazy how many people do not sign up for Game Pass. And you can kind of see that right there, right? In 2 years, it only went up 10 million people. And that's including the people who got moved over from Gold to Game Pass.
We don't know that necessarily, depending on how it's classified, right? Because Sony did the same thing, right? Sony said they converted. You have to have a subscription to.
Right. But all of Game Pass's subscriptions are called Game Pass now. So.
Yeah, I don't know. Either way, I think
it's not a big jump in 2 years. It's incredibly tiny, but that relates to what you were telling me, which you said they're not moving the needle on bringing gamers in. That, like, as it stands right now, like, video games have kind of hit like some sort of proverbial wall on finding players.
Well, and I think Xbox is going to have growth regardless. I think they didn't have any titles. I mean, that's what Sony did really well, is there was a nice conversion of first party titles from the PS4 to the PS5. They had a couple of smaller titles that were released during that window that are exclusive to the Xbox or the PlayStation 5. Xbox didn't have anything. I mean, Xbox had just recently started having some console sellers, right? Palworld, they talked about stuff like, 34 million Game Pass subscribers. They talked about a couple of games going on other consoles. Again, the part of the agreement that Xbox had to get to buy Activision was these 10-year contracts,
multi-plats. So.
Yeah, they necessarily don't have agreements with PlayStation for that, but Nintendo, they have a 10-year agreement to bring Xbox games to Nintendo, regardless of the game. I just don't think it's a big deal. I think they said no to. I mean, they're always going to say no to big title. They're going to say no and maybe, right? They're not going to say keeping it. Keep it 100.
That's no different than Sony. Even when Sony has a 6 month to 1 year timed exclusive, you don't hear like Final Fantasy 16 exclusive for 1 year. Like no one's gonna say that because then you're like, oh well, I'll just wait, play it on Xbox in 1 year.
That's what I'm saying. And they even said, hey, if we bring these games to PlayStation or whatever, Nintendo, and they buy the game and they're like, I just paid $70 for this game. Why not just get an Xbox and get Game Pass? I think that that might not translate as something that might be a small margin, but that does.
And we could
grow
see it grow significantly. It would be really curious to see what the numbers are come end of this year because I just pulled up like Diablo 4, for example. We now know is hitting Game Pass in March. That's a huge game. If this was March 28th, if this is Diablo 4 new day one. I mean I feel like that moves Game Pass subscriptions because I mean it's a huge game, and you get it for free with Game Pass, and then all of a sudden a $100 $50 expansion doesn't look so bad because you paid $0, and that's only one game, right? And then so by the end of this year, you're already looking at Diablo, Indiana Jones, Starfield,
it's crazy lineup.
It's a lot.
I mean,
it's a lot of first party titles.
If you're a new customer at this point, right, and you see the titles, hey, I get to play all the Xbox games and I get to get Diablo for free for a month because it comes with the Game Pass, and I signed up and it's $10 or $15 a month. Like it's a no-brainer. I think, and the fact that there's a nice dry spell during that window, 14 months on the Sony side, like I think Xbox is trying to build something. We talked about this 4 first party AAA games a year plus anything from that's just Xbox as a publisher, not Activision, right? Activision is going to release at least a Call of Duty or
which may be multi-plat, but you get it for free on Game Pass. So
get it on free on Game Pass. And the other thing they said, something that really interesting that I really liked, that was really, really interesting. If you buy a game on Xbox, the Xbox console, it translates to PC.
Oh, right. Yeah, it does. Right.
That's a crazy value. Are you telling me I can buy a game on Xbox and then it translates to the PC? Yeah, I mean that's there's nobody that does that. So the value there is a lot. I don't know. I personally thought it was exactly what they needed to do to say. They had all the people on here. They said that continuously from now until the end of time. They said it convincingly that day one, every single game from every single publisher
on
Xbox,
Game Pass.
On Game Pass, day one. So like that means Call of Duty. That means the future Diablos. That means anything under that umbrella.
Which Sony can't. I mean, will never compete with. That's just not something Sony's going to get to do. They just can't. They just can't afford it.
Well, that's what I'm saying, and I think that sure, the console numbers are terrible. They're half, but
we still need those games to show up, though. I will say that.
No, I agree.
It's got to be good. It's got to be,
I just think this Christmas is going to be very telling. I think this Christmas coming up is going to be very telling because by that time, all these games will be out. Yeah. Right. So, I mean, if I'm a parent, I don't know anything about games. I see Indiana Jones, I see Call of Duty, I see Diablo, I see Fortnite, and then it's free with this Game Pass subscription. And then this console's $299. How do I say, I really want to buy this $499 console and $70 game? It's a very compelling argument, especially that there's nothing coming out from first party. Outside of some remakes from Sony. So that's my take. If you don't like it, you can stick it in an envelope and mail it to Brian.
Just stick it in an envelope. Send it to me. I'm trying to open up this image here for our next thing of this woman wearing Apple Vision Pro. But before we go there, I actually wanted to argue with you and stuff, but there's really nothing to argue. We've been through it. I do think there's I've said 100 times over how much respect I have for Phil Spencer. He is a gamer. He cares about games. They put a lot of money into people. The interesting part that I think that I'm really hopeful for is they invested a lot of money in people who used to be great. And I hope they can be great again. Like they bought Blizzard when Blizzard was I mean, like not having the best of luck. And they bought Activision. Well, I mean, Activision, you can't.
Yeah, Bethesda. They bought
And they bought Bethesda, which also wasn't heavy. Bethesda and Blizzard were probably the two that used to be like pinnacle gaming companies that were in a sort of turmoil with their player base. And I would say the same thing for Call of Duty, but it still sells. But if you look wide, I mean, people aren't happy with Call of Duty, but they buy it because there's nothing like Call of Duty. So Call of Duty continues to win because there's nothing that's better than Call of Duty. For now. And who knows if there ever will be. I mean, it's just like Destiny. Destiny will continue to do well because there's nothing like Destiny. And I can talk about the Division 2, which I started playing again too. And as I was playing it, I was sitting there talking to a buddy of mine, and I was like, it's so funny because we leave these games essentially searching for the new version of this game, but it doesn't exist. And you end up just coming back and going, yeah, there's really nothing that does the Division like the Division does. There's nothing that does Destiny like the Destiny does. And there's nothing like Call of Duty that does what Call of Duty does. And all of that boils down to controls. And I really think that's it. Those games just feel good. They are fundamentally sound video games.
It's not control, it's feel.
It's feel.
It's always feel.
Yeah.
It feels good to play, yeah, I just think that it's crazy if you actually look back and you go, okay, how was Xbox 10 years ago? Like, how many studios? What games were they releasing?
So it's just like Bungie, and that's it. It's really crazy though, because the studios they had were like Bungie and BioWare, and I'm like, why did you ever let those studios go?
Well, because Phil Spencer wasn't in charge.
He's
been there for 20 years, but 10 years ago he wasn't in charge. He started once he took over the reins, it was already too late. Right?
You're talking about another studio too that was heyday to what the hell are you doing? BioWare's like right up there with Blizzard and Bethesda.
EA is just where games die. I mean, like
it really is.
Battlefield was the direct competition, or it was supposed to be the direct competition to Call of Duty, because like Battlefield 4.
It's funny though, because it is and it isn't, because like the feel for Call of Duty is not in Battlefield. Like people play Battlefield for that. The same reason, honestly, why Helldivers is fun. It's that moment to moment is so unplanned and insane.
It used to be though.
It used to be.
If you go back to the 4 and even 1 and 5, there was way more action. Yeah. It felt like you were dropped into a live
like a Battlefield
war.
Yeah. And then they went and screwed that whole up, screwed the pooch.
Yeah, and they changed it back, but it doesn't feel good. It feels now it's too crammed. There's too much going on.
The new one will bring it back. I think they realized that like the DNA of our game is the campaign, and it is the moment to moment action that's only works when everything is just close enough and just packed that there's never a moment where you're like chilling.
Yeah, I mean, I think that they really. If the Battlefield had a campaign, I think it would have done much better.
I don't think I go back though. I mean, we're sort of off the rails here, but it's fine. I don't think I go back to Battlefield or Call of Duty for that matter. I just think I'm over the whole first person shooter thing for right now.
No, you're not, dude. You say that all the time, and then you bought 3.
I did, and I haven't played it once, and I was like, why did I buy that game?
You played it. You played it for about a week and called it a day.
I don't know that I go back though. Oh, I mean, I will if it's free. If it's on Game Pass, I will. But I'm not going to purchase them.
You have said that since I told you I was going to buy Vanguard, and you're like, Vanguard is great.
Yeah, but I know that. But like something has changed. Like I can't even get into Destiny. Like something about the first person thing. It's
old. You're getting old.
I thought that's what it was too. But I think I'm getting older, and I've been playing them for so long that the thing that people like about them, like I don't, and I want to see them change, and they haven't, and I'm just kind of like,
what is the thing?
I don't know. I don't know what that is. I don't know what it is that could bring me. Well, for Destiny, I could tell you they're never going to do it. But for Destiny, it is getting the hell away from the gun chase. Like I don't think the gun chase loop is. I don't think it's doing it favors anymore. I think it needs gear sets, and it needs like all the things that modern life service games have, like Suicide Squad has. And that's like, Suicide Squad's a bad example, but like why Division does so well is because there is exotic weapons, and then there's exotic gear pieces, and then there's gear sets and gear bonuses and all these things going on. It's the most well done stat based game that isn't boring.
Division? Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
and it brings
100%.
you in, and you're not like you're overwhelmed, but when you're into it, you're like, oh, this kind of work. It feels almost like an ARPG done in a shooter. So I think that's where Destiny needs to go, and I don't see that happening because they have their loop, and people obviously still like it. And for Call of Duty, Call of Duty's never going to change. I think Call of Duty is a young man's game. Like it's super fast, and you got to have that cocaine addict itch to the I like to be in a Twitch shooter. And I definitely have fallen out of that genre.
To me, I think I like Call of Duty for change of pace. I'll play Call of Duty a couple times a week or something just to have something. It's a in and out match. That's why Battlefield for me is it's an exhausting experience.
Well, yeah, and that's why I'll never go back to Battlefield.
40 minutes is like, it's like you're in a thing for 40 minutes. Like, dude,
if you don't have people with, you're just like helicopter. Yeah. Nobody's shooting out. I'm done with this game. Like I'm just getting nuked by this helicopter. I want out. And you know what it is too? It is that I'm getting older. It's the competitive side of it too. I just don't care about. Like I don't want to be in a lobby with sweats. Like I don't have time for that. I don't want to be stressed out when I play a video game. I just want to have fun. And Call of Duty and Battlefield and Destiny's PvP is full of sweats.
That's true. I mean, it is.
As a matter of fact, PvP has we have gone like so far away from where I thought we were talking about. PvP has become something so tied to toxic players that even Helldivers submitted a thing on Twitter saying we will never do PvP because we don't want a toxic community. And it's really interesting to see like how that has sort of created this dynamic in games where games with a heavy PvP always have just a toxic player base that is just so frustrating to play with that I ended up falling out of it.
You know what? I was just thinking about this. So Helldivers, cool game, very cool concept. Like I like the equipment and stuff. I think if they made like a Division-esque game with bugs, it would be like
it'd be so much fun.
So much fun. But anyways, yeah. So we're off the rails. But I will say, I mean, Call of Duty is always going to sell. It is just like it's one of those games, and it's the fact that you can play it on PC using Game Pass is, I mean, But anyways, I think that Paul Tassi may have, like it's up in the air.
He's had some hot takes lately. I've been like, Paul, what are you talking about? Are you angry over there? Do you have a kid? Did he keep you up all night? Like, why are you writing so angry?
I mean, Xbox is doing, I just don't understand the backlash on Xbox. They're literally doing everything possible to,
PTSD. It's just PTSD. People are just like, oh, but you're doing all these exclusives. Like, don't give them to Sony. Like, oh, my Xbox. Like, it's Sony-induced fanboyism, which is also toxic and exhausting.
So I read a quote on X that said that Microsoft could buy Sony Entertainment.
Oh, well, I mean, yeah, they're huge.
Sony movie, the movie industry, there's movie arm and music arm, and not even cost them 1/10 of their value.
Yeah, they're like a $1.4 trillion company. I mean,
yeah. So it's like, I think they know what they're doing when it comes to this. Hardware's always been an issue for Microsoft generally. I mean, they're just not good at it, but they're doing better. I think that I will say from this, the one thing I did hear, they all the manufacturers say, but I think I do believe it is they're not going. I firmly believe they're not going to go with AMD. They are trying.
Yeah, you think next Xbox is going to move away from that?
I think they said that it's going to be generational leap, multiple generations. They said a multi-generational
that would be the
leap.
best move because we're going to see a PlayStation 5 Pro or something before we see anything from PlayStation. And if Xbox just sits with their X and S, which are both two great consoles, and then use the extra time to actually make, a big box that whatever does something new. It could be pretty big.
Yeah, my biggest concern is always the, release early. Like the Xbox 360 released early.
Yeah.
Right. And that's how it got a foothold on the PlayStation 3 because PlayStation 3 came out 6 months later.
But the thing is, like, when it comes to console wars, so much of that is based in exclusives, which we'll see where that goes. Right, because of all the studios they have. And then the other side of it maybe more so now than before, is power. And I mean, like obviously games can change and but they already look really like, I mean, like, right. I mean, there are games out there, Helldivers, et cetera, that you're just like, wow. Like, so I don't see, I think, I think for boxes, I don't think the future is like getting ultra realistic graphics as much as it's like, what can we do to be cost effective to hit 60 FPS, like locked with some form of ray tracing, and then you're
not,
good.
not some form. I think generational leap, multiple generational leap means to me 1440p, 120 hertz,
Like Cyberpunk.
ray tracing, yeah, like Cyberpunk at ultra settings, right?
With the DLSS frame generation, where you're like, holy crap.
That should be the bar.
Yeah.
Like that should be the starting point. I think you're right.
Well, I think with AI though too, like you're saying, they spend the time. You'll get it, because if you do 1440p frame generation in some sort of box format that also doesn't sound like a jet engine leaving your room and overheat and gets you locked 1440p at 120, then you are good. Like you don't need anything else. You don't need 4K, native 4K.
No, native 4K only exists on movies, right? That's the only time you absolutely need it.
And if anybody argues that, they're idiots, because even the highest PC players and every streamer and anybody who loves their graphics card and has sex with, literally fornicates with graphics, is playing at 1440p. I mean, that's the bar. It's like 1440p.
It's 1440p at 120 over all day over 4K at 60. Like that's just it's a competitive edge. It looks and feels better. Like it plays better.
And that's what Sony's going to do, because they updated their PlayStation 5 to do just that. Variable refresh frame rate and the ability to put the PlayStation at 1440p. If you're using a G-Sync NVIDIA monitor, then you can rock 1440p. And some of their games even come with like the ability to play at 120 hertz with all, like they've already kind of like clearly shown they're leaning in that direction.
Well, Xbox had that since day one though. The VRR 1440p X, Y, and Z. Like they've had that. It's not something that's readily available on TVs across the board, right? Like you'd have to go get a LG OLED TV.
Yeah.
C series or whatever. So, anyways, we digress.
It'll be very interesting to see like where we go. I mean, I don't know how much hardware stuff we see this year. You were saying they were talking about hardware. If they were talking about hardware, I feel like they're talking about their new controller. I do think they're behind a bit, because if you compare it to PlayStation's controller, the haptic feedback thing's not a gimmick. It's actually really nice. Although I do not play with it always on, because it can be incredibly exhausting on your fingers. But it's a fun feature that I think all Elite controllers should have. And I also think they need to change it too. If you're watching on video, like the PlayStation's controller has these two knobs down here for their Elites that you can click down and pull out the thumbsticks, like completely just dislodge this thumbstick in here and put in a new one. So if you ever have drift, you don't lose the controller, you just replace the thumbsticks, which is ingenious. So I'd like to see Xbox do that as well.
Yeah, I think they need to really think. I think Xbox's biggest concern is not going to be hardware. I mean, software, it's going to be hardware. I think they need to sit there and rethink hardware and figure out what is the most effective possible way to provide the gamers with the best experience, with the best controller. Spend the money. You have it. Have it. Go steal people from Sony. Like, I mean, I don't know what you need to do, but Sony has a much better they like good architects
or whatever, like people who are working on the technical side of the console seem to have a pretty good grasp on.
Well, it's not just that. I think the console's fine. I think that I'm talking about more the aesthetic of the UI, the aesthetic of the controller, the feel. Like they really went post PlayStation 3 with that weird boomerang controller that they came out with. Sony's been pretty good about creating a good controller. Last year, so Xbox really dropped the ball, because I feel like this controller was the Xbox 360 to Xbox One to the series.
Series X.
The controller didn't really evolve.
No. Anyways. Yeah. All right.
So I know you were all gung-ho about talking about
I do. I want to switch
Apple
to some tech
Pro
stuff, and I've got a picture of a woman. I'm going to remove this 100% because she's wearing the Apple Vision Pro, and it's kind of stupid. I mainly just wanted to know, Man, we talked about. I've talked to a lot of people about the Vision Pro. One, it's people says it's surprising because big tech people, I think, who thought this is going to be more gimmicky than anything else, call it a revolution, call it like, as much as people were holding the iPhone in their hand and going, did we just hit a new technological advancement? The Apple Vision Pro is that times 1,000. I think it's the worst piece of tech ever created. I think this is an addicting. I think it works. I'm impressed at how well it works. I'm terrified at how, if this ever becomes consumer friendly, which it will, how just addicted people are going to be to this thing.
I mean, so I think that, I don't know. I think that I don't think it's going to be a generational leap in technology. I think it's cool. The concepts are cool. You get to do stuff, and I like there's some really interesting productive things you can do with this thing, but historically this is how society ends. So
right. Well, what's really
like,
interesting too on it, and I haven't used it, but obviously Zuckerberg did like a review, and he called it like cool and stuff. But then he, some people think he's actually going to sell his stuff a lot more now too. He basically was like, oh, this is surprising because it's surprising to me how much better like Meta, or what is it called? What does he have? That's like
the Quest.
The Quest. He was like, the Quest is actually better at watching movies and playing games. And he was like, I'm surprised at how much better Quest is at some of these things that Vision Pro is doing. So maybe that'll sell more Quest. And then it made me think like, well, maybe it's not the end all of tech of society, because Quest has been out for a while, and it's not like that's getting bought up left and right.
Well, people have it. I mean, it's generationally upgraded, right? I think there's.
Is Quest AR too?
No.
Oh,
it's
okay.
VR.
It's just VR. So there's no AR stuff in Quest.
No, I mean, and the thing is, like, I don't like the idea of AR. Number one, AR means that you are seeing the world in front of you while you're doing something.
Right.
And VR
the augmented
is more,
reality. Right.
Yeah. Where VR is you're playing a video game, that's all you're doing, right?
Yeah.
It goes with you. It's not, and the battery life is significantly better. Like 2-hour battery life for a $3,500 piece of equipment is absolutely mad. Like, no.
Yeah. That you have to stick in your pocket. That's the size of like an iPhone.
And you're walking around, and then it just dies, and then you're just an idiot walking in the street with something over your face.
I have heard that if you don't have that thing on right either, that it's over £1. So I mean, like, if that's not on your neck right, you are going to have some problems, my friend.
Yeah, I mean, Sony came out with the VR thing. It's just heavy, like, and it's front heavy. So it's like you're going to have neck strains. It's not I think eventually it's going to be very similar to the Google glasses. Like, that was a generational leap because it had stuff in the actual the glass, and it was very light, and it charged, and it lasted 8 hours.
Which now you got Meta on board with Ray-Ban making their version of that, where you've got video and AI attached to it.
Yeah, that's different though. The Google glasses had a it was very much similar to like a heads-up display.
Okay. What happened to those?
It just didn't. It was a test.
Yeah.
Well, it was like what, 10 years ago at this point,
right.
And people were wearing them to the movies and recording movies. So.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, that's right.
Do you remember this?
Yeah.
So, but like, you would have it on, and it showed you directions and where you're going, and it was.
That
cool,
will be the future, I do assume. At some point, we'll be walking around with Ray-Bans on. That'll translate foreign languages for you.
Oh,
probably
100%.
pull up text messages on your phone and do things that we don't need them to do, and just make us even lazier.
I do see, like, there's some innovative ways to learn and teach and stuff, but like, I mean, it's not to me, it is a very cool piece of tech that will not be mainstream until it becomes more practical, until it has like an 8-hour battery that you can wear on your face. That's not,
and it isn't over $3,000, a down payment on a car. So,
or a really shitty used car, but like, still, It's more productive than
But
this
it's
thing.
interesting with tech too, because I want to know like with the AI and stuff too. Like, I wonder when we might start seeing that find its way into video games, especially like RPGs and stuff that are like solo experiences, and the ability to like essentially be in a game that's adapting to you because it's using some form of like Chat GPT or something. That'll be wild.
So you know who has a massive stake in Chat GPT, right?
Oh, it's Microsoft. Oh
Yeah, and they
yeah,
just
dude. Yeah, they're gonna make what is it, Cortana, like way better than Siri.
so I'm thinking no, that's not even they're done with that.
Oh,
What I think is going to happen is they're going to require this is how they're going to beat Sony. I'm going to tell you right now. They're going to put in an AI chip in your next console, and then if their first party titles, let's say they're RPG,
yeah.
the AI can literally create a game with the assets in minutes, in
Oh yes.
seconds.
Or yeah. Or
It can
give you
make
like
it,
NPCs that like react to you like real
yeah.
time.
Yeah, exactly. It's going to be very similar to like what physics did. You know, eventually they added a physics engine specifically for
Right.
so like AI. You know, the AI.
That's like
you're
how
never gonna
Battlefield won the show for a bit because of its physics engine. What was it
right.
called? Real physics or whatever, and buildings would collapse around you and all that stuff.
Exactly. And
Which
before it
then
was
they
just
went
like,
away from. That's another thing they did somehow in the new game. That just went away. It's like, oh, buildings
yeah,
don't collapse anymore. Okay.
no. Well, it was just a little, but to me, AI in video games is inevitable.
Yeah.
And that changed the game. It might make things worse or better. Who knows? But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I would consider like, oh man, this is really cool. Maybe I should, look into it. Maybe it's worth it. No, it's not worth any money at all, ever. Don't buy it. If you buy it, I don't know what to tell you, folks. It's a sad world, and you might be single very soon.
Yeah. If you had somebody, you kiss them goodbye.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to walk into a room and see you off in some weird world with like some sort of freaky porn.
Doing all this. Like, did you see the video of the guy on the subway?
No, the one I like is the guy who's like, "Oh man, I love this thing. It's so good. Like, here, let me put it down for you." And he puts it down on his desk, and it's just loaded in tissue paper and lube, and you're just like, "Oh my god, really?"
This guy was on the subway. I'm sure it's fake, but he was on the subway and he was just like doing all this. He's
Oh no, yeah, and then he starts like, yes, and the person sitting next to him's like, "What the?" And then just gets up and leaves. Yes, I've seen that.
So like, I mean, it's at this point, it's kind of
funny, but it's sad. It's like, I don't want to see that in real life. Like, I don't want to get on a subway and a bunch of people are just like,
yeah, but I very much that's what's going on. I think it's just, I mean, maybe if that's real life, that's just,
we actually turn into Wally. I mean, I didn't know there was a pool here. Oh my god! Like, it's like you never turned off the screen.
Yeah, you fell into a pool with this $1,000 piece of equipment.
Okay, we're back. What's up, everybody? We're back. All right. Yes. So we hit up Microsoft's deal. There wasn't any loud arguing because, unfortunately, I just agree with Freddie. I don't think anything they're doing is really stupid on that. We hit up a little bit of the Apple stuff that's going on, as well as AI. And, we always like to end this stuff with some dad takes, some hot takes, some independent opinions. And even if we don't have any. So like my only dad advice is in the realm of AI, honestly, is going to be like, train your children how to use it, because if they don't, they're going to get left behind.
I mean, it's a little early for your kids, but and my kid, I think dad advice. Oh man, best of luck.
Yeah, I know,
you
right?
and yours. Like
the world seems like it's changing so fast.
I mean, it's generational leaps and everything. I mean, it's just, to me, I'm just trying to like grasp by the time my kid is 20 years old,
the whole world
like,
will be different. What is it we talked about that like for our parents' generation, like technological advance happened?
Okay, so
you said it's like every 4 years, and now I don't remember what you said.
So back when our parents were, the youngins, 10 years of technology,
Yeah, that's what it was.
technological advancement took 10 years, right? Then when the internet happened, and then we became the youngsters, 10 years happened in 4 years. And now technology leaps in comparison to the 80s, 20 years in 4 years. So,
Right.
so in comparison, it would have taken our our parents 20 plus years just to get the four
Where we
years
get
of
in 4, yeah.
yeah.
Which
Yeah.
is
So in four,
essentially like in 1 year, it's 5 years of, I
yeah,
hate math, but it's a lot.
yeah,
It's crazy, and you can feel it because it changes. Like, I mean, even the stuff on AI and what's happening. I mean, you wake up, any day you wake up, something new could like completely alter the entire state of the industry. It's pretty wild.
I mean, I mean, things happen so quickly, that by the time you have realized that things have changed, it's changed
I
again.
actually have a question. I have an AI question for you. Because
Okay.
Freddie, if anyone knows, does all sorts of stuff. He's really, really technologically pretty smart. I'll give him that. Not really smart at anything else. Just kidding. He knows a lot. He used to be the guy I went to when I was like building PCs and stuff. Like most of the stuff, anything I actually learned off tech came from Freddie for a very long period of time. What I'm curious about, because I still don't understand it, it's like AI obviously is computational power, but like at some point, don't we hit a wall? I mean, like
No.
doesn't it take like servers upon servers of rooms to generate the data in which people need and the computational power?
So I mean, so again, technology grows, right? So you went from having hard drives, the spinning hard drives, to
Right.
SSDs, to NVMe, right?
Right.
And so you've had the same, quantum computing is different, right? They make when it comes to AI, right now there's different ways to do it. Nvidia has its way where they put a bunch of cards together and it uses that. And then you have quantum computers where like basically they make their own custom chips, right? So custom chips that are like think of a CPU this size with a 100,000, or let's say 10, like a million little cores. So there's technology leaps when so AI, for example, is in its infancy right now. I mean,
Right.
AI existed prior, but it didn't have the direction, right? It just says AI used to be just general commands. Um, A plus B equals C. A is, hey, Brian goes to the grocery store. B, he gets eggs. C, eggs are home. And that is a command. And then you can make that happen as many times as you want. That's AI, right? And so then you make multiple lines of that. Say Brian goes to the grocery store, gets eggs, gets milk, eggs and milk. So it's just Brian goes to the grocery store, gets eggs, milk, cheese, eggs, milk,
Right.
cheese. So the commands, the only thing that's going to change is hardware is going to advance and be able to do more. Because originally it was just eggs. Now it's eggs and milk, eggs and cheese, and then so that's going to be
Yeah, but in terms of like space, then is it just the same? Are we looking at like, is it essentially like the same server rooms just upgraded? Like, is that how that works?
Yeah. Or they're doing, their fiber connections through multiple data centers. Like
Right.
they will be able to.
So really, we just need an EMP. One EMP, wipe it all out. No internet, no AI. Hey, we're all back to the Stone Age.
I mean, yeah.
And times are probably a lot better.
EMP would kill everything, and no more video games for you, and you'd be very sad.
I'd be
you spend so much
sad.
time.
I don't know what I would do. The podcast would end.
Podcast would end. All right, I know that was kind of a long-winded.
We went down a dark alley. I'm just curious because it's pretty wild. I mean, they even talk about how doesn't happen often, but like because so much stuff is tied to electricity, right? Obviously, because electricity is required to run servers, and a lot of technology too is also tied to like the magnetic fields of the Earth. Is how like signals and sometimes stuff are sent, and then satellites that a pretty nice solid, which happens, it has happened a long time ago, it happened like in the 40s, solar flare from the sun can actually be big enough to not only disrupt but like honestly quite fracture our entire system if one was big enough. I went down this entire doomsday rabbit hole where I only believe half of what I read, but I'm like, that's really interesting that like how much in the future, how much dependence we'll have on something that theoretically a simple like giant solar flare from our sun, which we cannot control, could just be like, oh yeah, let me just take that down for you real quick.
So that wouldn't necessarily hurt our data centers and stuff, but what it will hurt is all the satellites
Yeah.
around which is GPS, which is
Right.
cell
Cell
phones,
phones. Yeah.
which is like a lot of TV. So TV is not, everybody thinks TV's through cable, right? No, TV goes through a major large satellite to a provider, and the provider provides that information through cable.
Right through the
or
cable.
whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
Or if you had
So
Dish, then you're actually like,
yeah, you're pointing to their whatever. Um, it's funny. Like I know we can digress, but there's some really interesting technologies right now when it comes to like storing data. I'm not data. I'm sorry, power. So and this is way off topic, but
oh, like
there's
to protect against stuff like
no,
this.
no. It's a completely crazy type of battery that is made out of easily found. It's like sodium and sand and salt, or no, sodium, sand, and alkaline or something. But anyways, it only does it only you're only able to use it when it's heated up. So
Oh, interesting.
and it stores it stores an X amount of electricity, and it never loses that capacity. Like
You just got to
lithium.
heat it up to pull it.
Yeah. So guess where they're putting it? They're putting the data
In the
center
desert.
underground. Yes, underground in the desert, and the battery's above. And then during the day, it heats up the battery, and they use solar power in the day while the battery's getting charged through the sun. And overnight, they use these batteries, and then they get recharged. Anyways,
That's
it's
wild.
really interesting technologies. All right.
All right.
So
I digress.
hot take.
Hot takes.
Go. Go.
Mm. 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 Hot takes are hard because it usually means like you disagree with something. But I don't think this is really a hot take. I think this is a known. A lot of people have already said it. But with the launch and success of Helldivers, the 14-month delay might have happened because I think every first-party title coming out of PlayStation, they decided has to be on PC. And I think that's part of that decision making because it's now going to start launching day and date PlayStation and PC.
I mean, if they did that, that would be the smartest thing Sony's ever done. And the other side, what I would do to really expand the brand is make a driver for PC for your controller.
Oh God, yeah. So you don't have to use like DSX. That's how I do it.
Exactly.
If you're trying to get on PC and you want to use a PlayStation controller, a $4 program on Steam is how you do it. It's called DSX.
Yeah, it's not native. You get it's a whole thing. But if Sony if Sony wants to expand its hold and add to PC, hey, again, it's the console is not what sells the really. I mean, think about it. If you didn't see the console, you just had the controller, right? The controller sells the console. The controller in the game sells the controller. The console itself is just a console.
Yeah. What am I playing on, and where do I play it?
Yeah, and you want to be playing it anywhere and everywhere, right? So that's a good hot take. I think that you're right. I think Xbox showcases two things on the June showcase. I think they showcase
Fable.
I think I think they showcase a partnership game from their new partner that they signed a 10-year agreement with, Nintendo. I think somehow something happens with Nintendo. They show off something that's cross-platform that would
blow
be
the
insane.
whole earth up and be like, and coming soon, the new Zelda. And everybody would be like, oh, I'm buying an Xbox. Zelda 60 FPS on Game Pass. You would have more Xbox. I mean, it would never happen, but I mean,
it would never happen. But I think more like Smash Bros. And that might be a fun thing to add to. I don't think any of these places are going to put their like number one title, Zelda, Mario, but I think.
Do you have a hot take on Nintendo hardware? Like, are they gonna do anything, or you think we'll just end up getting new Nintendo? And look, it does what Xbox or PlayStation. Like, I don't even know. Like what Xbox One. Right, because they're on Xbox 360 right now, so they're 2 generations behind essentially.
No, they're. I think they're. Yeah. I think you're right. I think they just released the new one. They just did the OLED one. Yeah. It's supposed to be better, and then they're coming out with the Switch 2. I think, but let me go back to I think they showed a partnership with Nintendo on something, whatever it is, and then I think you're right. The controller. I think they
Yeah.
released the controller, and that's also why they're building games for Sony, is they get to experience the controller and
Oh yeah. Yeah.
copy those things and make it better. So that's my hot take, is I think we see a new controller similar to what Sony did.
I like it. I
That's
like it.
it.
I like it. All right, man. Well, there you go, y'all. You heard it all right here. Not first, probably last. I hope you all pretty much enjoyed it. Next week, who knows? I don't really know what we'll cover next week. I don't really have much to say about Suicide Squad. I think we've already like kind of beat that horse. I'll probably like discuss more with Freddie, maybe about some Helldivers. He picked it up, so we just all picked it up. I might have some stuff on Division 2 because I am replaying it and am very impressed with the changes that have happened to that, and maybe continue our discussions that we seem to have about live service and what the hell that even looks like in the future, and how games like Division will continue. But either way, we'll be here in your ears next Friday.
All up in your ears. Yes. And don't forget to subscribe wherever you can, comment, like, and do all the things, because
All the things.
I really do appreciate everybody listening on Spotify and on iHeartRadio.
Yes.
We saw a large spike in folks in Germany.
What's
Hello,
up, Germany?
Guten
Tag.
Is yeah,
Guten time. Guten time. That's Guten Tag.
Guten Tag.
All right.
But anyways, like
Until
and
next
subscribe.
time.
Thank you so much.
Later, everybody.
Later.